So this is the discussions interface. We've talked about this a bit already, so I'm not going to get too deep into what we're looking at on this particular page, but we are going to talk about creating a new discussion, and we're going to talk about what discussions look like after they've been created. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a discussion with the Add Discussion button at the top. I call this Week 2 Reflection, and I'll give some instructions with regard to what this discussion is about. Now, just like everywhere else in Canvas where you're typing stuff in, we have access to the rich content editor here. So there's no shortage of things we can do or ways we could dress these instructions up. We could add a YouTube video if we wanted, or images, or whatever it is we wanted to do. We could dress it up nicely. We could attach a file if there's going to be a reading associated with this, or some other type of file. Let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on Choose File. So I've selected a file here. Down a little bit lower, there are several options. We always want to make sure we're allowing threaded replies. I'm not sure why Canvas leaves that off by default. It seems like leaving it on would be the most popular way to go. If threaded replies is not checked, then students cannot respond to one another. They can only respond to you. There's another option here for users must post before seeing replies, and that's probably not going to be useful unless you're actually grading a discussion. What that prompts a student to do is to be more creative. They can no longer read what other people are posting before making their own post. Here we can make it a graded discussion. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then there are a few other options here we're not going to talk about. Points possible. We can tell Canvas how many points this is going to be worth. Which assignment group this belongs to. This is a graded discussion. And then the due date. I'm going to save and publish so I can skip the publishing step. So this is the discussion board post that we've created. You see the title, you see my name. Students can access that to quickly send their instructors messages or see their contact information. We have the instructions, and then also the file attachment here shows up. Up here at the top, you're going to see a few buttons. It's whether or not this discussion is published. You can publish it or unpublish it here. You can edit the instructions or the file or the points it's worth, anything that has to do with this particular discussion that we created. You can edit the details here. Also, there's a gear here, and if we click on this gear, this has actually some pretty important stuff in it that you wouldn't expect to be here. You can mark everything as red on this discussion board post. We'll talk about that here in a minute. We can delete the discussion board post if we want to. We can go into the speed grader to start grading student interactions. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this menu is adding a rubric. And this is really the only way to add a rubric to a discussion. It's kind of tucked away and hidden. So at this point, a student can quickly and easily just click on reply and respond to that post. Or they can reply to one of the students that's responded. And you can see how that hierarchical structure forms, where the reply to the reply is indented quite a bit, and the image is a bit smaller as well. This can go on indefinitely, really. And the indentation just keeps getting greater and greater. If for some reason one of these items is something that the instructor needs to delete, we can come over here to the gear to the right of that and delete the post. Now, sometimes your initial reaction to a post that a student has made that is abusive or inappropriate is to delete that so that nobody sees it. I would exercise caution in that. Sometimes it's important to actually have evidence of a student that is behaving in that way for the sake of student affairs. So don't delete it unless it's an absolute must. If you do need to delete it and you click on that delete, it'll prompt you to confirm that, and I will. That particular post will be deleted, and it will tell you who deleted it and at what time. If you allow students to delete their own posts or edit their own posts, this will also show up when a student deletes his or her own post. You'll notice that even though that post is deleted, the response to it, the reply to that deleted post, is still in effect. It still exists. So now we're looking at a discussion that has interactions from various people. Up here at the top, we can see the numbers that show up that tell us how many responses and how many of them are unread. And if I scroll down, I can see the different people who have participated in this discussion. You'll notice a little blue dot next to each of these. Unless you modify the setting, these will automatically turn off as you scroll down through the discussion. I have it set to where I have to manually clear them just for the sake of showing you how to do that. If I click on that blue dot, now Canvas considers that this message has been read. I'm no longer going to receive notifications regarding Jeff's participation on this discussion. I can just go through on each of these and do that. If I decide, wait a minute, I need to come back here, I don't have time to really invest in reading this as well as I should, I can also come back here and mark it again and be notified that there is an unread message here waiting for me still. This also shows an important aspect of Canvas that not everybody does, but they should, and that is adding a profile picture. With these profile pictures, we have a visual to associate with that student. So you can see Jeff has added his picture. My student account that I use for testing purposes, I just use a comic book character that I really enjoyed as a kid. So that doesn't necessarily help people to know what I look like, but that does give them some visual to represent me. And that's fine, as long as there's just something there to break up the monotony of having 5 generic silhouettes staring at you when you're going through and looking at the discussion board. This variation is very minor, but it's important. You can see the hierarchical structure of the responses here as well. We have the student, and then I responded to Bobby Joe's or my initial post here, and you can see the indentation indicates that this is a threaded reply. I can reply to Jeff too by clicking on the reply underneath his response. I can attach a file here, and I have access to the rich content editor. So I can link students to course content or add videos or images like my student account person did. Now that my response has been posted here, one other thing I wanted to show you is what it looks like when an instructor edits the post of a student. Here we can see that Jeff's post was edited by James Long on December 4th. So you can't just alter a person's post without Canvas broadcasting that. So just be aware of that. As you can imagine, this message board is going to grow in length, and you're going to find yourself scrolling down into infinity sometimes, especially in larger classes. So this can become pretty unmanageable after a while. It's actually not so bad if you know how to use the tools here. Up at the very top, we can search for entries by specific people. So if I only want to look for stuff that I know Jeff has added, I can just type in his name, Jeff, and it'll automatically pull up just his post to where I'm only looking at Jeff's interactions. If the person has more than one, it'll also pull those up. If there's more than one James, for instance, it'll pull up all the different Jameses in the course. This will also work for the body of the discussion in question. So if I look for Holy Grail, it's going to pull up that post that has the term Holy Grail in it. I can click on anywhere I want on this post here to view in discussion. There's the link here, but anywhere I click on it will actually do that. So if I click on my Holy Grail post, it's going to open it up in the full view with anybody who's replied to it or anybody that this was a response to. Additionally, there are 2 more buttons here to the right of the search box. I can click on this up arrow to collapse replies, and that's going to really shrink down the responses to where I can just only see the name and a preview of the student's initial response to my introduction. Now if I want to, I can click and expand on Jeff's response and see what else has been responded to it, or shrink it back up by clicking on the arrow. Or I can expand all as well here. So this is to shrink all and this is to expand all. So by using these various tools, this can really help you to moderate your discussions and make the process easier.